Hello and welcome to interest.co.nz. I'm Janae Tibbs-Shirani and today I'm joined by Auckland Mayoral candidate and former Xero Managing Director, Vic Crone. Thanks for joining us, Vic.
Thanks for having me.
It's been a huge couple of days with an independent panel making some bold calls for how Auckland should be allowed to grow. The panel's outdone Auckland Council's proposal for how the unitary plan should look, calling for more densification and sprawl. In central Auckland, we're talking a 43% drop in areas zoned for single houses, a 21% expansion of areas zoned for apartments and terraced housing, and a 60% rise in mixed housing urban zones. Vic, is this the sort of Auckland you'd like to see?
Well, I think we have to put it in context of actually where's Auckland coming from? And we've been growing like this for quite a long time now. So if you think about Auckland 30 years ago and you were to walk out of Auckland 30 years ago and walk into Auckland now, you'd kind of be, oh my goodness, is this our city? But we actually love our city and we enjoy our city and we've grown in a really positive and vibrant way. And so that's what I want to see for the next 30 years. The reality is there's 750,000 population growth in that time. We have to put people somewhere. This is a trend that's happening everywhere around the world, and we call it urbanisation. 179,000 people every day are moving into cities, and that's what we're seeing happening in Auckland. So I think the unitary plan is an incredibly complex piece of work to try and balance all of that. And what it does actually give us, though, is a bit of a footprint of where we need to head towards.
Sure. And I mean, that is the thing, that the unitary plan provides capacity for all these places to be built, but they still need to be built. So I guess that's what we need to remember.
That's right, and I think that's where the real focus needs to go.
Yeah.
And of course, as you start to read through all of these documents, and I haven't got through all of them yet because there's 80 of them, as you start to read through it, you do start to see some of the fishhooks and the things that we're going to need to watch out for. So you're absolutely right. How the council actually delivers this plan for Auckland is really important.
Look, the issue of densification has been really been a focal point for a lot of people in Auckland. The sort of proposal in its current form is really ramping up the amount of densification. We're talking the nice leafy suburbs in central Auckland, providing capacity for them to be densified. What are your thoughts on this? Do you think the NIMBYs in these areas need to just get over it?
Well, I think actually people haven't really been told what it will look like. And so if you haven't been involved in the process, and this is a big change, and you haven't been involved in change, then of course you're going to get really anxious around it. And so I think the council could have done a much better job, particularly with the out of scope submissions, to work with Auckland suburbs and say, look, well, here's what we're doing, here's why we have to do it, and actually here's what your suburb could look like. When I speak to a lot of people who you might classify as NIMBY, actually it's an anxiety around what their community will look like. The transport isn't good enough today, let alone another 5, 10, 15,000 people coming in. The schools are overflowing, the community services are bursting at the seams. So it's not just about the house, it's about how the whole community works together. And I think that's the picture council must paint for communities.
Sure, look, your rival Phil Goff has sort of talked about having more densification in areas near transport hubs, but has largely sort of said we should keep some of the heritage in the central Auckland suburbs. What's your take on this? Do you think the likes of Herne Bay, Mount Eden should be densified, so that we can increase the number of people living in these areas?
Yeah, well, overall, Auckland will have to go up and out. And where we go up, we absolutely need to make sure as much of that can be around the main transport nodes as possible. And when you look at the plan, for me, there's actually not enough. When you follow your eye down the main transport, whether it's rail or bus, the intensification around that, or the density, could actually be a bit stronger. So I actually think that's something that we need to look at, because that will then take a bit of the pressure. It's not really just about the suburbs changing, but it's that the transport to some of our suburbs is so weak. And so we do need to think about really carefully densifying and minimising our required investment in extending the transport network right across Auckland. It is important to keep the heritage of Auckland. And so I can understand people's concerns around not just density, but removing some of the rules that we had pre-1944. So I understand that.
Okay, so you're thinking, are you pro-densification in central Auckland suburbs, or would you like to see it sort of left largely the way it is and put the densification further out near the transport routes?
Well, the first thing we have to do is increase densification around the transport nodes, and then we can have a look at, well, what's left. I suspect there will be some intensification required around the suburbs, and what I've been seeing over the past 6 months as I've been campaigning full-time on this is there's some beautiful examples of 3-storey apartment buildings being built in Auckland, and communities just don't understand that because they're not seeing it, and there's only a handful of them around because actually they don't meet the bylaws or the unitary plan laws. So what we need to do is help Aucklanders understand that actually densification doesn't look like 10 to 20-storey ugly apartment buildings that we built in the 70s, 80s and 90s. That's not what it looks like.
Sure. Look, this whole unitary plan process has really highlighted the tensions between council and central government. So I was just wondering, do you think there is room for central government to sort of step into this process, and to what extent do you think it should be involved when we talk about decision making and also when we talk about funding?
Yeah, the way I look at it is you can't complain about everything and then do nothing. And so it's likely that the unitary plan will have to be passed because we are in such a serious situation in terms of shortage of houses. I can't speak whether the government's going to come in or not. I would love to see the government and council working much more in partnership around solving the housing supply chain for Auckland, because when you look at the issues, actually they fall across government and council. It's not one or the other, it's both. So I want a strong council that stands up and says, yeah, absolutely, we do have to build a lot more homes. We're actually short as well, so we need to catch up. Here's what it looks like, government. Here's what we really need you to do. Please get on with that, and we'll get on with our stuff. So that's the type of partnership that they need to deliver so that we can actually get some control over our house prices.
Sure. Look, and just talking more broadly about, if you were to be mayor, you've spoken a lot about your support of having more public-private partnerships and using that as a funding model to get some traction for Auckland projects. Can you just explain to us your vision for that and whether you think there is an appetite among those in the private sector to fund these sorts of projects? Yeah,
so if you look at the big cities around the world, many cities, actually a lot of countries are struggling with funding infrastructure growth, and there's about a $500 billion shortage of funding globally around this, and so we do need to look at more sources. We can't expect ratepayers and taxpayers to pick up everything. In Sydney and Melbourne, for example, they use partnerships very effectively. So the rail twin tunnel in Melbourne is being built as a Triple P, a public-private partnership. So that's absolutely what I want to bring to the table. Auckland Council is not strong in doing this. I've done it in my business career, and I'd like to bring some of that leadership and stability in seeing Triple Ps develop and thrive. They are complex and they are really hard, and so it is important that we have a governor and a governing body of the city that understands how to develop that. In terms of businesses wanting to do it, yes, absolutely. There are a range of businesses out there who have already offered to council to partner in a number of areas, like partnering building car park buildings for park and rides and things like that. So there is definitely an appetite for it.
Have you been having some discussions with some companies about this? Just
absolutely.
So that when if you were to become mayor, once you were in there, you had some sort of things in the pipeline ready to go?
Yes, so absolutely. And the areas that are very fertile are around toll roads, for example. So in my transport plan, I will bring forward Penlink and Mill Road as toll roads under Triple Ps is what I'm looking at. And we do need to look at park and rides. We've got 5,500 car parks for our entire population in Auckland, and that's simply not enough. So there are definitely private investors who are willing to help us in that space, and we should actually just have a look at it.
Sure. Okay, look, Vic, something else I wanted to talk to you about was, my understanding was that the former National Party President, Michelle Bogue, shoulder-tapped you to run for mayor. I was just wondering what your connections are now with the National Party. Yeah,
so that's not quite true, but that's okay. I mean, I did have some conversations with Michelle around it.
Right.
The initial idea actually came from some colleagues of mine that I work with in the business sector and in the social enterprise sector. So, and then, Michelle and I had some conversations along the way. I have a strong relationship with National. I have worked with them over the past, 5-7 years in my various roles. roles across Xero, Chorus and Spark, was Telecom then. But also I have a good working relationship with Labour, and of course I worked with them on the Future of Work policy that they developed there. So I'm standing as an independent. I do have strong relationships with both, and particularly with the National Party. So.
Is the National Party funding your campaign to any extent?
No, not at all.
No?
No.
Okay.
No.
Right, so look, a lot of people might be thinking, why would someone with a really successful career in the corporate world jump ship to politics? I was just wondering whether you had any sort of aspirations. I know you've been asked this a lot. Do you have any aspirations to get into central government eventually?
So, no. I mean, I'm really looking at the importance of Auckland to Aucklanders and New Zealand, and within the context of the world stage. And I see how fast the world is moving, and Auckland isn't keeping up with that. So I'm very passionate about making a difference to Aucklanders' lives, but to New Zealand. And that's why I've put my hand up, because council needs a shake-up, and I've got a range of skills to bring to that. Many people have asked me, so you're going to be a politician for life? And I don't look at it like that. The world these days, and particularly for my children, is actually, we're going to be changing careers a lot more. This idea of job for life is not the world that we are heading into. And I think politics needs a dose of that too, where you've got people coming in and out with different backgrounds and different experiences.
Sure.
Yeah, so rather than, we're kind of in politics for 30, 35 years our entire life, actually we need more diversity. And that's what you see in business, that's what you see in social enterprise, and I think we're going to see that in politics as well.
You're right. And I mean, look, if you think about the number of years we're going to be working these days as well, it's not like you're sort of, we might be working till we're...
That's right.
70. It's a lot of time to be working.
It is a lot of time. I mean, that's exactly right. And so they say, my daughter's going to have 6 to 8 career changes. And I think, how exciting for her. I mean, that's really challenging. She will have to embark on a philosophy of lifelong learning. She'll always be learning as she changes those different careers. But I think you think about the wealth of skills that you pick up along the way to do that. It's quite exciting.
Yes. And look, actually, speaking of that, I went to an event recently where you spoke at. You addressed a group of women in business, and you said something quite interesting. You said it's better to reinvent yourself than for someone to do that for you.
Yes.
Something along those lines. Could you just explain to me what you mean by that motto? And I guess in the context of your career and where you're going.
That's right. So the world is changing fast, and the speed of change is just getting faster and faster. And so we're seeing that in our businesses, that we're having to change more frequently to keep up. And if you don't, then your business just gets completely marginalised. So you look at what Uber's done, Airbnb, what Netflix is doing to the traditional television. So actually, if the best person to disrupt yourself is yourself, because you then have more control over the rules of the game. If someone else comes in and basically says, look, you're doing things a pretty old way, I'm going to do it this way, then you're not able to kind of control how that plays out. So I always work really hard to keep changing and developing myself, to keep up, knowing that if I don't, I'm going to become obsolete in the way that I think. And that's a pretty tough place to be. Yeah, it's easier to constantly change a little bit than every 5 or 10 years just become, suddenly what I've done for the last 10 years doesn't work, and so now I've got to learn a whole new way and change.
How much reinventing do you think you need to do if you were to step into this Mayoralty role?
Yeah, I think... I don't know. I don't know yet. All I know is that I have the capability to do it. So I recognise when it needs to happen, and I know how to get there. So so I know I'm going to be able to do it, and I find it really exciting. Yeah.
Sure. Okay. Look, Vic, I think we'll leave it at that. Thank you so much for your time and for coming in. As I've said, it's a big week for Auckland, so it's really good to hear your views on that. So thank you.
Thank you.
And I'm Janae Tibshirani here at interest.co.nz.